All right. Well, the big issue at City Hall today isn't the budget. It's a totally different topic. I just want to ask you about this, Ashley. They have a committee hearing today about the Department of Justice report, the draft of which we've seen and reported on. And tell us about what's going to happen at that meeting today.
So I think what we're going to see is a pretty we're going to see a pretty robust discussion about what the draft report says. I would expect the Police Department and the Fire and Police Commission, both of which were invited to this meeting, I expect to see representatives of both pushing back on a lot of the assertions within the draft report. They have consistently said, the department heads, that this is a draft, there are errors, there are inaccuracies. However, as some of the aldermen have pointed out, much of this information, even if it does not involve data, it actually involves interviews with people, and that interview probably wouldn't change even if, whether it's with an individual officer or with community members. So those concerns are still valid in the minds of council members. Yeah,
and let's step back for a second on that report. This is part of this cooperative process they went through that Chief Flynn requested from the Department of Justice. And the idea in the report is to what? Outline improvements or find shortcomings, all of the above?
Yes, yeah. The idea of the collaborative reform report is for an outside party to come in, take a look at the police department, work with the police department to identify shortcomings and room for improvement, an initial assessment, which we were initially told would be released within 8 to 10 months, and that was when the process started, which was back in December of 2015. The initial assessment for other cities typically outlines how the department has done and what they need to do better and how to achieve that. And so then the federal government is supposed to provide some technical assistance to help the department make those reforms.
So Mary, you spend a lot of time over at City Hall talking with the aldermen and things. What would you say is the temperature over there these days among the Common Council members with their satisfaction with the police department?
There's been a lot of frustration in recent months with aldermen feeling like the police department, especially Chief Flynn, has not been as responsive to them as they would like. They've wanted push for more accountability. There was actually a measure introduced by Alderman Zielinski that would give the council the power to essentially fire the police chief, fire chief too, but I think they were really targeting the police chief in that one. So I think that there has been questions, frustration building for a while. It did seem to cool off a little bit, maybe over the September recess when they all went on vacation, and they did approve, once they came back, they approved this asset forfeiture money that had been held for quite a while. Then the Fire and Police Commission earlier this week did sign off on on Chief Flynn's pursuit policy plans that they had ordered him to change. So it does seem like things are maybe calming down, but that might change at the meeting.
Well, let me flip the question here for you, Ashley. In talking with police department sources and people, what's their sense over there of, are they happy with how the council's operating? Are they frustrated as well?
I think there's a lot of frustration on both sides. Mary and I both had the opportunity to interview Chief Flynn before this draft report was something that we had in our hands and that we were reporting on. And at that time, we were talking about changes in the immigration SOP that the department has. And I think the chief really felt frustrated in that he was being unfairly accused, or at least it was being implied that he acted improperly from both the council and the FPC, the Civilian Oversight Board. And so I think there is perhaps a sense of embattlement over there. And I think there also is a lot of frustration among the rank and file that has been the same for a while. People are frustrated about support from the council or from residents at large, but they also are frustrated maybe with staffing levels and worried about other things. And the draft DOJ report really does provide some insights as to how at least some officers feel. Again, this is just, we don't know who all they interviewed, we don't know how widespread this is, but there are definitely safety concerns on their part as well.